Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome once again. I am here to give you the summary of the previous lecture. I know that you have become habitual of getting the summary of the previous lecture because you want to get more and more insight into the issue. So I would like to start to give you a brief summary of the previous lecture. In the previous lecture, we talked about the point and interval estimation. Simply speaking, in point estimation, we get only one value of the parameter. In n sampling, as we make more and more sample, the values of the estimated parameters keeps on changing. So what we say that we want to make an interval in which the value of our estimated parameter may fall, and we say something with confidence that how much we confident that our interval will include this value. We talk about the alpha, 1 minus alpha. These are the same things, and we will continue this from this situation. Area under the normal curve, you know, I am sure now you have crystal clear that the area under the normal curve is 100%. If you go in percentage, it is 100%. If you do go into simple number, you will say area under the curve is 1. Once half is on the right side of the mean and half is on the left side of the mean, it means you can say that it is half to the left of the mean, that is 1/2 or 50%, and the same on the right hand side. The t distribution, we will talk about different distribution: standard normal distribution, t distribution, and chi-square distribution. It was not some special reason to give you the characteristic of the t distribution, but because we were using it extensively, and most of the time we test our significance level by t statistics or the t distribution. So yeah, I gave you a very small and brief sketch of the t distribution. So without wasting any time, I am going to start how to construct the confidence interval for the population variance. So what this means, that by assumption it follows the chi-square distribution. So without giving any details, I would like to start it right from here. So this is that the formula, the sigma square is equal to n minus 2 and multiplied by sigma hat square divided by sigma square. As we had the formula for t distribution, it was equal to beta 2 hat minus beta t, and this is standard error of beta 2 hat. So what this means, we have now the chi-square, it is equal to, and we know that by assumption this sigma square around which we are going to construct the confidence interval, by assumption it follows the chi-square distribution. So what we will be starting, the starting point is that chi-square 1 minus alpha by 2 is less than equal to chi-square less than equal to chi-square alpha by 2 is equal to 1 minus alpha. So what is this now? As we did in the previous, when we were constructing the interval about the parameter beta 2 hat, what we did, we just replaced these t values here. So now I will be replacing this chi-square by this formula. So the formula, you will be writing this, that replacing the chi-square equal to that formula. So it will become probability chi-square 1 minus alpha by 2 less than equal to n minus 2 sigma hat square divided by sigma square less than equal to sigma square alpha by 2, and it is equal to 1 minus alpha. So now, making the similar mathematical trick, this is also the confidence interval, but what we want a specific and precise and refined shape of this confidence interval, so that we could easily show that this is the lower bound and this is the upper bound, and we want to separate the confidence interval, because we are making the confidence interval about the sigma square. So we want this that we build a confidence interval about this sigma square. So what we will be, I will be trying to get rid of this n minus 2. So I will be dividing this term, and this term by n minus 2. So this will become the probability chi square 1 minus alpha by 2 over n minus 2 less than equal to, this will vanish, sigma hat square over sigma square less than equal to sigma, this is chi square alpha by 2 is equal to 1 minus alpha. Now again my purpose is to construct the confidence interval about the population variance, that is the sigma square that is lying here. So I would like to get rid of this, so I would divide all the term by this sigma hat square. So this will become equal to probability, this will become chi square 1 minus alpha by 2 divided by sigma hat square into n minus 2 less than equal to, now when we will divide this, this will vanish and it will become 1 over sigma square less than equal to chi square alpha by 2, and it is equal to 1 minus alpha. Now there is a confidence interval. We have constructed the confidence interval about around the 1 over sigma square, but our purpose is to construct the confidence interval about the population parameter, that is the sigma square. So it is very simple, I just reciproc this inequality. For example, if it is in the shape of A over B, I want to write it in the shape of B over A. And I would like to show you that what happens with the sign of this, and I will be showing this. So what will be, it will become the probability, this is, now this term will become numerator sigma hat square n minus 2 over chi square 1 minus alpha by 2. Now it will become greater than equal to. Let me write first this. I will be explaining that when I reciproc this inequality, why the sign changed. This will become greater than equal to, and this will become sigma square, this will become greater than equal to, and I think we forget to write the things with this here, and there are things that here was the n minus 2, and here we have now the sigma hat square into n minus 2. So when we will see, this will become sigma hat square n minus 2 divided by sigma square alpha by, this is chi square alpha by 2, and this is equal to 1 minus alpha. So look at this, if 3 is less than equal to 4, less than equal to 5, if I reciproc this inequality, less than equal to, for example this is less than equal to, so what will this become? It will be better that 1 over 3 is greater than equal to 4 and greater than equal to 1 over 5, 1 over 4 and 1 over 5. So when we reciprocate the inequality, the sign changes, and so what we did, we just reciproc the inequality here, the less than equal we wrote here, greater than equal, and similarly here. So here was a bit confusing here, no need to worry about this, we just forget to write it, that when we divided all the terms by n by 2, we forgot to write here n by 2. And in the next step, when we divided all the terms by sigma hat square, I wrote this sigma square, this one here. So now our purpose is to write, I am going to write it in this form. If I bring this one at this stage and I take it to this stage, I reverse the inequality. For example, if A is greater than B, A is less than B, less than equal to B, less than equal to C, if I want to bring C here, it will become C is greater than equal to B greater than equal to A. So I am reversing this. I am bringing this portion of this inequality here and I am replacing it the other with this. So this will become the probability. So now I am writing this term here first. This will become sigma hat square n minus 2 divided by chi square 1 alpha by 2 less than equal to sigma square less than equal to sigma hat square n minus 2 divided by chi square 1 minus alpha by 2, and it is equal to 1 minus alpha. So this is the final shape of our class interval. So this is the final shape of our confidence interval that we have built around the population parameter, that was the sigma square. So this was the mechanics of this. I am going to give you some example taking the values. If you see, we need to construct the confidence interval, we need the values of sigma hat square, n number of observation, and the values of this, that is the chi square statistics. So if we have the values, if you look at this, we have assumed that the value of the sigma hat square is this, and we choose the alpha 5% level, and you will immediately come to know that 1 minus alpha will become 95%. So degree of freedom, that is the n minus 2, it is equal to 11. N minus 2 is equal to 11. So the critical values for chi square are given as. So what we can say, that here this is the value, that value is for chi square alpha by 2. Alpha by 2, 5 by 2, 5% by 2% is equal to 2.5%, that is equal to 0.025. So this is the value of chi square at alpha by 2, and this is the value of chi square when it is 1 minus alpha by 2, or otherwise you can say that it is 0.975, and when we add this one and this one, it will become 100% R1. So what we do, if you remember the previous formula, what was the situation there, that what we need the values. First of all, if you remember here, sigma hat multiplied by n minus 2, that is the degree of freedom. So sigma hat is equal to 0.893, and it is multiplied by, according to formula, go to the formula, it is multiplied by the n minus 2, that is the degree of freedom, and it is 11. N minus degree of freedom it means here the n is 13, because if degree of freedom is equal to 11, it means n minus 2, 13 minus 2 is equal to 11. So this is the one, and it is divided by the critical values of the alpha by 2, that is equal to 0.025, and this will be less than equal to sigma square. This will be less than equal to, this will be less than equal to, if you see the here same values, 11 multiplied by, this is the sigma square 0.893 over, now divided by, you know that this is 0.975, and I expect that it should be equal to 0.4484. I have not made the calculation. The calculation may bit change, but I have just substituted the value, and this is the sigma square less than equal to, it should be 2.576. So what I am going to do is that now what our purpose is to explain that what this means. Now this is confidence interval of sigma square and of 95% confidence. So what this means, how we will interpret this, that we are 95% confident that this class, this confidence, the interval will include the values of the true parameter, that is the sigma square. Now after making such kind of confidence interval, Now we are interested to test the hypothesis. This was the interval that just we were interested that whether our value falls into this interval or it goes beyond these values. So to test this, whether it is inside or outside, this is called the hypothesis testing. This is very interesting and we will be doing this. What we test? The simply is a given observation or finding that we find compatible with the some stated hypothesis. So if we state some of the hypothesis and we see that the value we have is it has some compatibility with the values, the word compatible means sufficiently close. It is not equal to identical, but it is used as sufficiently used as adjective, and it means it is very, very close, although not the identical, but it is very, very close to this, to the hypothesized value. For example, if you have some value beta 2 hat is equal to 5 and you suppose that beta 2, the true parameter, is equal to 10, so we can say that we want that how it is near to that one. In this we will be talking about two kinds of hypothesis. Definitely I am sure you are well aware of this. This is called the null hypothesis. We write in this way and we test this against an alternate hypothesis, that is the H1. We called it the alternate hypothesis. So the null hypothesis tested again against the alternative hypothesis, and one another name for the hypothesis, alternate hypothesis, is that it is the maintained hypothesis and it is denoted by H1. And the next is the alternate hypothesis may be simple or composite. We are talking about the alternate hypothesis. For example, if H1, that is your now the alternate hypothesis, if I say that it is equal to beta 2 and it is equal to 1.5, it is simple. But if I say that H1 is equal to beta 2 is not equal to 1.5, it may be greater than this and it may be less than 1.5. So our alternative hypothesis becomes composites. Theory of hypothesis testing, that what the theory of hypothesis says, simply it is concerned with developing rules and regulations. Definitely we will be talking about the rules and procedures that how we test this null hypothesis against the alternate hypothesis. And what we decide for deciding whether to reject or not to reject the null hypothesis. The theory of hypothesis only concerned about the rules and the procedure that will enable us to reject or do not reject the null hypothesis. Two approaches for the hypothesis testings are we will be discussing here. First is the confidence interval approach and the other is test of significance approach. Both these approaches assume, they are on the one assumption that whether that is the statistics or the parameter, and they have the probability distributions. This is the assumption between both these techniques, that is the confidence interval and the other is the test of significance. Both are based on the assumption that your parameter or the statistics has some kind of probability distribution. So first we will be talking about the confidence interval approach. We built the confidence interval. Now we are aware of this, and we can immediately make the construct the confidence interval with some of probability 95%, 90, 99%, and we will see that how we reject or accept, do not reject the null hypothesis. The first is two-tailed test. In this approach, the first kind is you can say the A approach type is two-sided or two-tailed test. In this, what happened? Nothing is different. Our alternate hypothesis becomes composite. As in the previous example, I would like that H0 beta 2 is not equal to a number, for example 1.5. So it is not equal to, So when this kind of situation that our alternate hypothesis is composite, we use two-tailed test. And what is this? If beta 2 under H naught falls within the confidence, this is now 100 multiplied, because we are in the norm of showing into the in the percentage. If beta 2 under H naught falls, this word is very important. If we make the confidence interval two-tail at the left as well as on the right, and we see that the value that we have estimated falls into this confidence interval, we will see that it falls within the the confidence interval, we do not reject the null hypothesis. So it falls into the acceptance region. I am going to show this. I would like to again repeat this, that what happens, I am sure you have constructed the confidence interval. Now what is the confidence interval? Here this is alpha is arbitrary. You can, I assume that you set it on the 5%. So 1 minus and 100 is just multiplied here. 100 is percentage, it is in the percentage form, it is nothing something special. So if your estimated values falls in this range, you will not reject the null hypothesis, and if it lies outside and beyond the interval, you may reject the null hypothesis. Rule of thumb I have just explained. Decision rule: construct confidence interval. This is simply as 1 minus alpha. Confidence interval for beta 2 means beta 2 or beta 1, or if there are beta 3 and beta 4, and if it is sigma square, then definitely the only difference will be that it will be following the chi-square distribution. What will you do? You do how to reject and how to do not reject the null hypothesis. Decision rule is, first we construct the confidence interval. If the beta 2 under H0 falls within this confidence interval, do not reject. If this is the beta 2, suppose you say that the H naught, that your true parameter is equal to, for example, 3. If 3 falls in this category, in this area, then this is the acceptance region. I would like to write here acceptance regions. Acceptance region, and beyond this side and beyond this side, these both are rejection region, are critical regions. These are critical region, or you can say these are the rejection region. So this is, I have made this diagram. So what is the rule of thumb? Simply construct the confidence interval and see what you have supposed the null hypothesis. If the value of your supposed fall in this category, you will not reject the null hypothesis. However, if it falls into the beyond these falls in the critical values, you may reject the null hypothesis. When we are doing this acceptance or rejection of the null hypothesis, we may make two kinds of mistake. The first is called type 1 error. One is the type 1 error, rejecting of the true null hypothesis, that your null hypothesis was true, but mistakenly you rejected this. So if this is the situation, that if you reject of the true null hypothesis, a null hypothesis is true, but unfortunately we reject this, this is called type 1 error. And it is the other one. Look at this. What is the type 2 error? The null hypothesis was false, but we taken it as we accepted it. What this means? That the null hypothesis, in reality it was not correct, or you can say it was false, and we accepted it. We said no, and we accepted, or we could not reject a false null hypothesis. So this is the type 2 error. I am a bit now quick because I have to cover a lot of ground and I want to complete this topic right today. Rejection or acceptance, similarly, if we reject the null hypothesis, hypothesis, we simply say that our results are significant. And if we are unable to reject the null hypothesis, we say that our results are insignificant. Now, how to decide the significance and insignificance? It should be totally left towards the researcher, and he should decide at what level it is significant, at what level it is moderately significant, and at what level it is highly significant. So it may differ from researcher to researcher depending upon the nature of his study. One side or one tail, that was the two-tailed. I will just give something here. There are diagrams in the slides that you will know. So this is two-tailed. This is the acceptance region, and this is the rejection region, the critical region, this one and this one. So now we have completed the two-tailed test, definitely you constructed the confidence interval, and look, you see that the beta 2 falls into that area or not. If it falls in that area, it is you will not reject the null hypothesis, and if it falls beyond your acceptance region, simply you will say that you have rejected the null hypothesis. Now, what is the one-sider? Sometimes we have strong prior or theoretical expectation that the alternate hypothesis is unidirectional. Go to your previous one. Your alternate hypothesis was that beta 2 hat is not equal to 1.5. It is bidirectional. It can beta 2. This is not beta hat. This is beta 2. So beta 2 may be greater than the 1.5, or it may be less than the 1.5. So this is bidirectional. But if we have some prior or you can say the theoretical information, and we can only write that our null hypothesis, that we know this from previous literature, history and theory, that the beta 2, we set this null hypothesis that it is less than equal to 0.5, definitely the alternate hypothesis will become that the beta 2 is greater than 0.5. Now it is one-tailed, and it is not bidirectional, it is now unidirectional. So when our alternate hypothesis is unidirectional, we have some such kind of situation, and we say that at one side now we are interested. This is, and you can say either this side, this is called the unidirectional, or you can say the one-tailed test. The other phenomena is the same. Now after this I will tell you how to calculate these values, how to write this, and what is the value of this. So just hold yourself for 5 or 10 minutes. Let me go further to go for the test of significance. The hypothesis, two approaches we discussed. The first was the confidence interval approach, and within confidence interval approach we studied further through two-tailed test and two-tailed approach and the one-tailed approach. Now we are coming towards the test of significance approach, that is mostly we use in common. Test of the significance of regression coefficient. Broadly speaking, if we say a test of significance is a procedure by which sample results are used to verify the truth or falsity of a null hypothesis. Different story. We use we suppose there was unknown parameter, that was the beta 2. We build confidence interval around this. Here we use the values of the sample, and then we try to construct a confidence interval. The decision to accept or reject the null hypothesis made as previous. We will reject or accept if it falls in that criteria. We will say the acceptance reason it falls. We will say that we do not reject the null hypothesis, and if it falls into the critical region, we will say that we reject the null hypothesis. If you see, now there is another indicator that we have replaced beta 2 by beta 2 star. So what is this? Rather than this unknown, that is the population parameter, we suppose that beta 2 star is equal to 3. We know this. For example, we suppose that it is equal to 3, and then we will be making this from our t statistics. We will come to know that what is this. And if you look at here, now we have made the confidence interval about the value that we already know, that is the beta 2 hat. We have estimated this. So what is this? Now we want to see that this beta 2 falls in this category or not, just to test that whether it is significant or not. We know this value, we set a range, and we will see that whether it falls into this range or not. Confidence interval versus test of significance. First, let me describe the difference. Now you can see there are some of the diagrams and you will get something from this. So in the confidence interval procedure, we try to establish a range or interval. In both we try to set a range or interval that has a certain probability of including the true but unknown parameter. Look at this. This is true but unknown parameter. इसमें क्या है कि कॉन्फिडेंस इंटरवल अप्रोच में हम अननोन के इर्द गिर्द जो है वो अपना कॉन्फिडेंस इंटरवल बनाते हैं. बट इन द टेस्ट ऑफ सिग्निफिकेंस अप्रोच वी हाइपोथेसाइज सम वैल्यू ऑफ बीटा 2. हम कहते हैं कि जी नहीं, हमें पता है बीटा 2 जो है वो कितना है, एंड ट्राई टू सी वेदर द कंप्यूटेड बीटा 2 है, जो हमने पहले ही कंप्यूट कर रखा है. बीटा 2 की जगह पर बीटा स्टार हमने सपोज कर लिया, बीटा 2 हैट कंप्यूटेड है आपका, और उसको हम जब कॉन्फिडेंस इंटरवल बनाते हैं, जिस तरह के ये आपके सामने कॉन्फिडेंस इंटरवल है, देन वी सी वेदर द वैल्यू ऑफ बीटा 2 हैट falls in this range or not. If it falls in this range, there is no rejection. If it do not fall in this, we reject the null hypothesis. So this is the difference between this. In the first, I would like to again, we construct the confidence interval around this beta 2 that is the parameter of population and it is unknown, although it is fixed. But in the test of significance approach, that is this approach, we hypothesize some of the values of beta star that is now representative of beta 2, and we construct and see that whether beta 2 hat falls in that category or not. Practically easy. This is very easy in practically. Practically, what we do, need not to make confidence interval. Simply now we are going towards some of the practication of this, that by going this making confidence interval, it may take time and it may be bit confusing. So what is this? Simply take the t statistics, and you know how you have. We have just replaced this. We have replaced our this value beta 2 by beta 2 star. You will suppose the value of beta 2 star. See whether it lies within the critical t values. Now you will get a t value from here. अब आपके पास ये तीनों वैल्यूज मौजूद हैं. बीटा 2 भी है, आपने एस्टिमेट कर लिया, ये आपने सपोज कर लिया, और स्टैंडर्ड एरर आपको जो है वो जब आप एस्टिमेशन करेंगे, यू विल कम अप विद द वैल्यूज ऑफ द बीटा 2 हैट. So if you get the t statistic, for example, you get the t statistic equal to 4.76. Now we can test this directly, and first I will show you that how we test this is t statistic. If we suppose that this is our beta 2 hat, and this is not supposition, we have got it from the estimation. So this is supposed, now this is beta 2 star, and this is the value of standard error of beta 2 hat. So if we take this values, it becomes equal to 5.86. So if I want to test this, I will come back to this slide after showing this one. If you see this, the t statistic 5.86, it is falling in these region. if you look at there, this is the 0, and look at this, this is minus 2.306 at 95% confidence interval. 2.5% on this side, critical region, 2.5 on this region. This is 0.025 and this is also 0.025. So what this, look at this, your T statistics. Here minus 2.306, here plus 2.306. So can you guess that where it lies? You can immediately guess that it is not lying in the region of acceptance. It is lying here because 2.36 and the 5.6 is greater, and I suppose it is lying here. So you will reject the null hypothesis and you will say that your results are significant. Here you have rejected the null hypothesis. Only you have just calculated the T status. Look at the beauty of this confidence and test of statistic approach. No need to go for the making the confidence interval. Just calculate the C, and there is a rule of thumb that changes with the degrees of freedom. And if you see that the number of observation is 20, and we say that you have set alpha is equal to 5%, and simply if you are calculated T, C means calculated, that is here, and if you go to this slide, so this is your calculated, this is 5.86 is calculated. If it is greater than T tabulated, tabulated T is these are the tabulations according to the table. If it is greater than this, definitely it will be falling in this area or that area, and now we will be taking it that this is the absolute value of T calculated. So if it is falling into this category side or that side, we will be able to reject. Now I am coming back that as we have the values of this 0.50, and if you look at this class interval, this one, we can now also test it by making the confidence interval. So look at this. Our beta 2 hat is this one, and by making the confidence interval, your lower bound was this one. This is lower confidence limit, and this is the upper confidence limit. Now look at this value and see whether it is falling in this area or it is falling in these areas, this area or this. These are the critical region, that are the rejection region. So what is this? If I suppose that, look at this, it is 0.3823, so it is 0.509, so it will be just falling somewhere here, so we will be rejecting the null hypothesis. So again we will saying that rather we can test it through the T statistics, similar result will remain there. No change will be result, but if you want to make the confidence interval, you can make the confidence interval and you can check this, that whether it is falling in the rejection region or in the acceptance region. Forming null and alternate hypothesis. We did a very good mechanics of making confidence interval. We studied the two approaches, that was the confidence interval approach in the hypothesis testing and the test statistics. Both approaches are easy, and at the end we saw a rule of thumb that was very easy, that how we construct, simply find the value of T and compare it, the T tabulated in different circumstances, if the number of observation is greater than 20, and there are some other also assumptions. So forming null and alternative null hypothesis. This is very interesting because mechanics can be, a mathematician can done a mechanics of this. If you give them the values of all the parameters, it is a matter of seconds that you construct the confidence interval, and whether you reject or accept, it is now further not a difficult task, and it is not a mystery. If you look at here, it is not a mystery कि जब आप confidence interval बना लें तो फिर null hypothesis को reject करना या accept करना कोई बड़ा काम नहीं. But the issue is that how does one formulate the hypothesis? This is important. There is, unfortunately and very sorry, there is no rule of thumb कि मैं आपको बता दूं कि आपका जो है वो इस तरह null and the other alternate hypotheses are found. But fortunately, at one side, unfortunately, there is no rule of thumb. But on the other hand, we are very fortunate that there are some clues, and there are, you can say, we can find a way in which we construct these the null or the alternate hypothesis. Very often, the phenomena under study will suggest the nature of null and alternate hypothesis. It means the null and the alternate hypothesis may differ from one research to other, and they should differ from one research to another research, because the nature and the, you can say, and the nature of the study will decide that how you formulate the null and the alternate hypothesis. Thus, it means the theoretical expectation or prior empirical work. If you have some previous information, go back to your subjective probability. If you have, there was objective and subjective probability. If you have some of the previous knowledge, then on the basis of this or that knowledge, you can make bidirectional or unidirectional alternate hypothesis. It is extremely important that that was the you can say the mechanism that how to construct. I would like to explain it again, because in the previous, although the previous is very important, but that is only a mechanics, that is a machine work. That if you have the values of all the parameters, you can immediately with one click you can construct the confidence interval. So what I am here, that the problem is how to formulate the null hypothesis and the alternate hypothesis. There is no hard and fast tools, but on the basis of the previous theoretical knowledge, we are in a position to formulate the null and the alternate hypothesis in a proper way, and it will guide us that whether our alternate hypothesis, that is the maintained hypothesis also, should be unidirectional or bidirectional. So here I am going that the researcher should establish these hypotheses before carrying out the empirical investigation. This is the base or the core and crux of today's discussion, that you should make the hypothesis, the null hypothesis and the alternate hypothesis before starting your research analysis. Because if you will not make this and you get the result and you are now going to make some of the you are going to make the null hypothesis and alternate hypothesis, you may have the temptation to form hypothesis that justifies one result. शुरू में आपने बनाया ही कोई नहीं, अब आपके रिजल्ट आ गए, अब आप चाहते हैं कि ये रिजल्ट जो है वो ये नल हाइपोथेसिस रिजेक्ट हो जाए. डेफिनेटली यू विल बी फार्मिंग null hypothesis and the alternate hypothesis in such a way that this should be rejected. So it brings some subjectivity into the problem, some biasness into the issue. So these should be avoided, at least for the for the sake of scientific objectivity. अगर आपने शुरू में नल और अल्टरनेट हाइपोथेसिस डिजाइन ना किए तो एंड पे आपको कई किस्म के बायस का सामना हो सकता है, एंड यू मे गो फॉर द रिजल्ट दैट आर मोर डिजायरेबल इन योर व्यू. So I will suggest, and it is always the common and norm and custom and ritual, that you should always specify or formulate the null and the alternate hypothesis before starting your analysis. The exact level of significance, the p-value. As the sciences are getting evolution over time, so what they are, we are getting with more and more sophisticated values. So there is another value that is called the exact level of significance. That is called the p-value also. So what is this p-value? The major before talking about the p-value, the major drawback of the classical approach to hypothesis testing is arbitrariness of selecting alpha. आपने कोई और अल्फा, आपने कहा जी अल्फा 10%, मैंने कहा नहीं जी it should be 5%. So it is up to you, it is up to me. There are arguments for this, why you selected at 10, I selected at 5, and vice versa. So in the very basic problem in the hypothesis testing is the choice of the alpha. But fortunately, if the choice has been done, that we have some with some mechanism or prior expectation or whatever according to your nature of the study, you set the level of significance, then what is this? You when this is obtained, you set this. Now we need not to even go to the t-values. This is very interesting. One step further. First, how we started confidence interval. We said no need to do this, go to the t-values. Now we are showing that even we do not know the t-values, we will just concentrate on the p-values. And why not simply find out the actual probability of obtaining a value of the t-statistic as much or greater than that. What is the p-value? P-value tells us that what is the probability of that the t-value will get this value, equal to this value or greater than. For example, if t is equal to greater than equal to 5 and I say that against the this p is equal to 0.012. This is supposed. So what this is that this probability shows that the t will get either value 5 or greater than this 5. So this is indirectly it is showing us the t-value. So we can easily guess from the p-values. So this probability is called the p-value. P-value is the probability of getting the t-value equal to some number or greater than some number. I gave here the example that if t is greater than equal to 5, what is this probability? This is the probability that t will equal to 5 or greater than 5. So this is the t-value and this is the value, and it is called the exact level of significance. So this probability, this 0.012 is called the p-value. Now you will be talking about, there are formulas to calculate this, but there are statistical package, I think all the statistical packages that do this, that report this p-value while doing when showing the output. So there is t-value also, there is p-value also. So you immediately see the p-value and you come to know whether to reject the null hypothesis or to accept the null hypothesis. There is kinds of that there may be person that they will be risk lovers or the risk averse. Two kind of people. Some are very cautious, the others are a bit, you can say they are not as cautious as the first one. For example, I will give you the example that the Shahid Afrizi is the risk lover in cricket. He wants to hit every ball over the rope and he takes the risk, because if you want to take the maximum score on one ball, you have to hit the ball over the rope and in the air, and there is the probability that you may be caught. On the other side, look at the captain Misbah-ul Haq, Mr. Tuk Tuk. You will come to know that he never takes risk and he is risk averse. So what I am saying here, that the risk lovers person may set the significance level difference, alpha different from the person who are risk averse. So what I means that the choose of level of significance of the Shahid Afridi and the Misbah-ul Haq will definitely be different about the same phenomena. What is that, the how to bet on this page are that. So this was the exact level of significance. So now it's time to give you a summary of this what we have covered, and I will be giving a detailed summary because I think there were some of the things that were very similar to each other. So what we started from the hypothesis testing, I would draw your attention to the when we said that how this quantitative techniques works, and there was fifth or sixth step that we said that we test the hypothesis. What this means, we test whether our hypothesis is rejected or it is accepted. When we this hypothesis tested, we came up across two approaches. The first approach was the confidence interval approach, and you know, in confidence interval approach, in previous lecture we made the confidence interval about the beta, but in this approach we constructed the confidence interval about the sigma square, that is the population parameter, and it follows by assumption the chi-square distribution. So that was the mechanics, but our real purpose was to know that if we know the values of this, how we will be using these values to reject or to accept null hypothesis. So when we are making this kind of rejection or acceptance, we may make two kinds of error. One is called the type 1 error. Type 1 error says that we reject the true null hypothesis, and the other is that we accept the false null hypothesis, or you can say we are unable to reject the false null hypothesis. So after type 1, avoiding type 1 error and type 2 error, then we came that there are two approaches of testing the hypothesis. One is called the confidence interval approach, the other is called the test statistics approach. So what, or you can say the test significance of test statistics, this is the other approach. So what was this? In the confidence interval approach, we came further into two categories. The first was two-sided or two-tailed approach, the other was one-tailed approach. In two-tailed approach, we saw that under the normal curve, we have the critical values on both sides. Why these are the critical values on both sides? Because our alternate hypothesis, keep in mind we always test our null hypothesis against our alternate hypothesis. So when there is two-sided, we have no prior expectation, prior information about our alternate hypothesis, that it is unidirectional or it is bidirectional, whether it is above the supposed value or it is less the supposed value. So what this becomes bidirectional, and for this we use the two-tailed test, and we make the confidence interval. If the value falls in that, we reject the null hypothesis, and interestingly, when we reject the null hypothesis, we become happy that our results are significant. But if we are unable to reject the null hypothesis, we become worried about this. It means that our results are not significant. So after this, we jump towards the one-tailed test. One-tailed test was that we have some strong prior expectation that this kind of things, and we know that our alternate hypothesis is not now bidirectional, but it is only now unidirectional. So what we are either on the left side of the distribution or on the right side of the distribution, depending upon the nature of the alternate hypothesis. This was the summary of this confidence interval approach. The other approach that we use mostly, that is the test of significance approach. In this approach, we simply we suppose the value of beta 2. Now it becomes beta star. Rather, in the previous confidence interval approach, we construct the confidence about the unknown parameter. But here we suppose some of the value of the unknown parameter, beta 2, and it becomes beta 2 star, and then we can make the confidence interval, and we have already the beta 2 hat we have estimated, and we just see whether it is falling the acceptance region or it is jumping out of the acceptance region. If it is arrested in the acceptance region, we are unable to reject the null hypothesis, and if it goes beyond its limit, we say that we reject our null hypothesis. After when we were talking about this test of significance approach, it is very simple that we just calculate the value of t. We have now all the parameters. T is equal to beta hat minus beta star over standard error of beta. So we come with sum of the t calculated. If your t calculated falls in the rejection region, if you make the t distribution and your t-test statistics is beyond this level, you will say that you have rejected the null hypothesis. So it means you need not to make the confidence interval. So we have jumped towards one step further, need not to make any of the confidence interval, just compute the t statistics. And there is a rule of thumb under certain assumption that if your t calculated becomes greater than your t tabulated that you will get from the table, then you reject the null hypothesis. After this, we went towards that how the null and the alternate hypothesis are formed. Simply speaking, the previous mechanism is simple. It is based on the values of the parameter, but now how to form H0 and H1 that are the null hypothesis as well as the alternate hypothesis. So what is this? There are no hard and fast rule. There are only, it is up to the researcher that how he formulates the null and the alternate hypothesis. It is based on his previous knowledge, and the null and the alternate hypothesis are different for one person as compared to the other person. But one thing should be kept in mind, and it is the core and crux of today's discussion, that the null and the alternate hypothesis should definitely be formulated before you start your analysis or the research. So what this means, if at the end you did not formulate the null and the alternate hypothesis, and you went and you did your analysis, and now there is the chance of bias, you may be tempted to formulate null hypothesis that may verify your results. So now there is no objectivity, now there becomes the subjectivity, and now there is biasness. This thing should be avoided, at least at the cost of scientific, you can say, the objectivity. Then we talked about the p-value, that is the exact level of significance. So what is this? It is nothing but it is, you can say, the more simple value to tell us immediately looking at that whether to accept the null hypothesis or we have to reject the null hypothesis. So what is this value? This value tells us that whether the p-value shows that this is the probability that whether the t-value will get this value or greater than this value. So this is the probability, and this probability is showing of getting some of the value or greater than that value of the t statistics or the t value. There is interesting relationship between the t statistics and the p value. As the there is a negative covariance, negative correlation between this. As the t values increases, the p value decreases, and as the t values goes to infinity, p values goes towards, you can say, the zero. So what this means, that's why we say as our t value is higher, our p value is low, and to reject our null hypothesis, we say that our p value should be minimum. And now how it should be minimum, it is up to the researcher whether you set it at 10% level, whether you set the alpha, that was the level of significance, at 5% level, or you set it at the 1% level. The choice of the significance is on the person that is the risk averse and the risk lover person in different fields. For example, in finance, in project management, the people take risk. Some people are very resistant, so they will be choosing different alphas to test their null hypothesis. I think it is enough for today, and from the next lecture you will be getting some idea of the E-views, and I will be giving some, we will be again coming back to some of the regression and some other topics. So I thank you very much for your attention. Goodbye and Allah Hafiz.